beyond the skies. You and I, we're breaking bounds on Baobab.
So thank you all so much for being here today. Really appreciate MasterCard Foundation and the Baobab Network having Mountaintop here to speak about our fellowship program. So as many of you already know, our program is about activating transformational local leadership worldwide. So what that means is we're working towards a future where every community can solve its own problems in order to build a just, loving, and peaceful world for all. The name Mountaintop is actually a reference to Martin Luther King's final speech, where he speaks about going to the mountaintop. And in many ways, he doesn't believe that he'll be able to make it. He will actually be helping lead a locally led movement of others to be activated to take on the mantle of civil rights and fighting for social justice all around the world. And after that speech, he was actually assassinated the very next day, tragically. And his legacy carries on through the local people that he activated. And so that's the motivation and the inspiration behind the name Mountaintop. And our work is cultivating transformational local leadership and strengthening communities in places worldwide where success too often means leaving and not coming back. So our main fellowship program is a paid 1-year full-time fellowship for the most promising local leaders to contribute to systems change in their home communities in lower income places around the world. So all fellows receive a $3,600 grant in USD. They receive a fully paid 2-week leadership institute hosted at the Harvard Edmond and Lily Safra Center for Ethics. We fully cover all the costs. So that's flights, that's lodging, that's meals, that's public transportation. It's fully paid. That also includes visa applications. So we make sure that everyone participating doesn't have to pay a cent to be part of this and can get that full experience on top of also getting this grant that's paid out on a monthly basis over 12 months. All fellows also receive a mentor who meets with them once a month, who's an expert in their field. There's also mentorship office hours where they can access ongoing mentorship from other people across the world. They are eligible for additional grant opportunities through our Catalyst Fund of up to $2,500. And I think what's most important for all of our fellows is the lifelong community of other peers who are doing amazing work all over the world right now across 10 countries, everything from the fields of public health to education to gender-based violence to environmental justice to food and agriculture. So many different things, all doing different things, but also all motivated by the same values of being courageous, local leaders, and compassionately fighting for what's right in their local communities. So who am I? How did I get involved in this? So just briefly, I grew up in the state of Oklahoma. I had a wonderful childhood, but when I was 17, I had a couple events that changed my life trajectory. The first is that I lost my father to cancer. And the second is that I witnessed a tornado tragically kill 9 children in the town next to mine because they didn't have a proper storm shelter. And our local government had no response to this. And with my father, there was basically no preventative measures taken. So by the time he was diagnosed, it was already too late. And so I connected these ideas to the lack of leadership in both cases, that with the right preventative healthcare or with the local leadership in our state providing good storm shelters, we could have prevented both of these tragedies. And that led me to a path of advocacy. I got involved in a petition drive to build storm shelters in public schools across Oklahoma. And I also continue that advocacy at the university level, advocating at the state government level on issues ranging from gun violence prevention to environmental justice, to economic development, to public health. And for me, I started thinking about the role that leaders play and how we can basically influence and pressure those leaders to move in directions that protect more people and to build a more thriving communities around the world. So I was really shocked and disappointed when in my final year at university, I saw so many of my classmates who wanted to make the world a better place start taking jobs in some of the biggest companies and the biggest cities in the world and leaving behind their communities and leaving behind the issues that they cared most about. And that's what really led me and a few other recent university grads back in 2018 to try to create an alternative pathway for the most promising emerging leaders to actually stay in their communities or return to their communities and work on the toughest challenges that their communities are facing. That led to the founding of Lead for America, which is a nonprofit that's now helped almost 600 full-time fellows serve in rural communities, tribal communities, and low-income urban communities, working on all sorts of different issues. Many of them have gone on to become city councilors, to start their own successful nonprofits, to rise up the ranks in state governments. And going forward, they're just continuing to grow in their leadership and just doing amazing things. And so about 2 years ago, we had hired a great team to lead the organization and to continue growing it. And I felt like I was now at a pivot point in my career where I had talked to many friends and peers who said, this is a great model in the US, but we really need this in my country, where we have the same issues of rural to urban brain drain or out-country migration entirely. Plus, we have the paired issues of high youth unemployment, of governance challenges, of so many other issues, with a huge lack of resources for these leaders, whether through philanthropy or through government grants. This is, huge gap and huge need within our communities and countries. And so that's really what motivated me to get involved with Mountaintop, to try to explore how this model and what I learned through Lead for America could apply in the international context. So, the last 2 years have been an ongoing journey of learning and listening. And we're really happy now that we've been able to get our first cohort started, which I can share about in this next slide. So in our first year, we had 13 fellows across 10 countries, across Africa, Latin America, and Asia as well. The majority were actually in sub-Saharan Africa, and they are absolutely amazing fellows, doing everything from human rights advocacy in Cote d'Ivoire to supporting women political leadership in Sierra Leone. In Nigeria, our fellow Itunu is working on education equity and helping out-of-school children get back into school. In Kenya, we have a fellow working on fighting gender-based violence. And we also have fellows in other parts of the world too, outside of Africa, whether in Indonesia, working on climate justice, or in Afghanistan, working on girls' education. So absolutely amazing fellows. During our Leadership Institute, we had 2 weeks that were spent in Boston in the United States. We had the first few days were spent in an outdoor retreat where we focused a lot on relationship building and soft leadership skills. And I think we had a lot of fun camping and canoeing and getting to know each other. We then had 10 days where we worked with absolutely amazing speakers. We actually had 33 speakers who were leaders from the Harvard Kennedy School, from the Divinity School, from the law school, from MIT, from Tufts, from Boston University. We also had some absolutely incredible social entrepreneurs who have done everything from helping millions of people across the world get access to solar power, to building tens of thousands of libraries across the Middle East. We have some absolutely amazing social entrepreneurs who are able to provide individualized coaching for our fellows. And beyond that, we also worked a lot on different skills, including management, including fundraising, including communications. We just had some of the most expert practitioners and academics coaching our fellows through these different skills on a one-to-one basis. And we're really excited that after this Leadership Institute, our fellows mostly had an incredible experience. 9.2 out of 10 was their satisfaction rate after surveying all of them. And 77% actually said that the Leadership Institute had a transformative impact on their leadership trajectory, which we're really proud of, meaning that these fellows, many of whom have gone through other fellowship programs and already are very advanced in their leadership, still thought that this experience was transformative. And the other 23% still said that the Leadership Institute had a significant impact on their trajectory. So in all, every single fellow had a very important and significant experience. And that's what we're really proud of and what we're excited to build off of going forward into this next year. So I'll share one more slide before turning to Itunu, and that's a bit about the fellowship application itself. So as you all know, we have an annual fellowship application. We just finished our Leadership Institute for the first cohort, and now we're getting ready to recruit for the second cohort. So the fellowship application for 2025 will be released in September. Our final selections will be made in December. The application will include a resume and 2 short responses of 250 words about your most significant leadership accomplishments and the sort of work that you would want to do as a fellow, what your project would be. What we're looking for are fellows who are willing to commit to work full-time on an initiative that they are leading across social entrepreneurship, activism, or some other independent project. So this can be quite diverse in terms of what the project is. We have fellows working on everything from public health to gender-based violence, to peace building, to girls' education, to menstrual hygiene. We have fellows doing very, very diverse things in different geographies around the world. But really what we're looking for when we're selecting is in general, we're looking for who we think is the most promising, most high potential leaders who are extremely committed to their low income community and low income country, people who we think will spend the rest of their career building and trying to deepen and scale the work they're doing, and people who already have a strong track record of success. At the end of the day, we're trying to find people who we think this could be the most high impact investment possible, where we think that this fellowship will help them grow as much as possible and help them create as great a systems change as possible in their home country and beyond. So I know that sounds pretty general. I think it's meant to be quite inclusive of people of different backgrounds. We actually don't have an age limit, but we had our emerging leaders in the fellowship this past year were ages 23 to early 40s. So it was pretty diverse. Most fellows tended to be in the range between 25 and 35. But again, we did have people who were outside of that. So I think what's important for us is that you already have a track record of success and you've already done some really great things as a leader, as leading some sort of initiative, but you're not so late in your career that we think that this fellowship won't necessarily make a significant impact on your journey. We think that we want to find people who this will be fully catalytic and high leverage in changing the trajectory of their careers. And the last thing to mention is that applicants can apply from any country, but we're particularly looking for people who are working in low income environments. So we have fellows working in rural communities, we have some working in urban communities like Nairobi, but in all cases, the fellows who are working are trying to serve vulnerable people in low income communities doing difficult work that is generally overlooked and not well funded. So again, we're just trying to use our funding as well as possible to invest in people where we think we can make the biggest difference and serve low income communities. So I feel like I've already talked too much. So I'm going to just share really quickly how to stay connected before turning it over to Itunu. So you can complete our interest form to get application updates. So in September, our application will be released, and anyone who fills out the interest form that takes 30 seconds that's linked here will get an email update. You can also go to our website. You'll find a link for our newsletter where you can also get application updates. You can also learn a lot more than we have time to talk about today on the website. And you can email us at that email address there. And then lastly, we have a very active social media presence where you can get a lot of great updates and pictures and videos and just get a better sense of what we're about and what our fellowship experience is like. So very active on all of these platforms. So I'd really recommend you all try to follow us on those platforms. So great, enough from me. I want you all to hear from Itunu, who is a fellow and can share a lot more about his lived experience of the program. So as you all will hear from him, Isaac Itunu Bamidele is the founder and CEO of Giddy to School Nigeria Education Innovation, which aims to remedy Nigeria's crisis of out-of-school children. The program has grown a lot. They have dozens of staff and volunteers around the world. They're leading their own leadership fellowship. They have a lot of different initiatives, and they provide scholarships for youth to get them into school and university. So Itunu has already done a lot of great work, and we're really excited for him to be part of the program. And I'd love for him to take it from here.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Please confirm if you can hear me. All right, yes. Thank you. I feel incredibly honored to have been introduced by Reed. Also talking about the works that we do through Giddy to School Nigeria, here in Nigeria. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Reed. Thank you to Victorine and to everybody that has made it down here to this information session. I will now call you prospective fellows because you're just one step away to this transformative leadership change. Yeah, just like Rita said, my work revolves around education, but it doesn't mean that every other person's work should or must revolve around education to be a Mountaintop fellow. We have people in politics, we have people in climate change, we have people in girls' education, advocacy, activism, and technology, and what have you. All we are looking for is people that can lead systemic change, that can lead local change, and do global exchanges. So I feel like Reed has already done a lot of the introduction. So let's just probably dive into the question and answer, if I'm right, Reed. and so that we can get the questions running and then clear misconceptions that prospective fellows might have.
Okay. So we have a few questions in chat.
Great.
Yeah, I could read them for you, or yeah, if you want.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yes.
I'm seeing, yeah, Ituno, maybe you can also look and see if there's any you want to answer.
Yes. So I think from a fellow's perspective, picking Ikmak's song Deme, apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. You're asking about the selection process. I'd say pretty much this is where you want to tell your story. I think telling your story and the incredible work that you're doing in your community will go a long way to shining, the light on your work through the selection process. So the selection process is really, really competitive, like you would think, and then really, really transparent in that, I mean, there's a panel of selectors, there's a word like that, that really scrutinize the fellows that are coming out for the fellowship each year. Being the pioneer set of Mountaintop International Fellowship fellows, I can tell you that the fellows that actually emerge as the cohorts, they are nothing short of incredible and amazing. So be rest assured that the selection process will be fair, will be transparent, and will be rewarding for the best set of people that are doing systemic changes work in their local communities. So you have nothing to worry about the selection process. All I would just advise you to do is share your story, and then let your story, be a guiding compass for you and hoping for the best.
Okay. So we have another question saying that could 2 or more fellows work on one project? If yes, how would they submit their application?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I feel like I've heard so many questions over the last 2 years, but I don't think I've ever heard that question in particular. So my thoughts on that is, yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. If people can come up with a really compelling proposal for why both individuals should be part of the fellowship, I don't see any reason why not. I think I would recommend that they reach out to the info@mountaintop.international email ahead of time, and just to explain a bit more about what they're thinking, just so they can get any additional advice from me or my teammates at Mountaintop, just to help strengthen their application. So I would say, absolutely, we're about trying to be as open-minded and entrepreneurial as possible. This is only the second year of the program, so we're still learning a lot. And if there's a good reason why 2 folks might work on the same project, or even more than that, we're definitely willing to hear them out and learn from them. I also wanted to answer one other question that I think comes up a lot, which is in the Q&A, there's a question about if the fellowship is primarily for fellows to serve in their home community or a low-income target community of interest, even if outside your home country. So that's a great question. The answer is that we're really looking for people who we think will be long-term committed to one community. And typically what that means is people who already have a really strong tie to that community, who we could be convinced will stay there long-term, because the whole model for Mountaintop is built around how do we figure out how to do development sustainably and build communities that can solve their own problems. And something that I've seen a lot in my own country, in the US, is a lot of programs like to send volunteers to do work where in communities where they're not from and they don't really have a tie. They go for a year or 2 and then they leave. And a lot of that impact they have, it can still be very positive in terms of what they can provide in those couple years. And maybe they can teach some people things there and help share their knowledge. But it's not necessarily the most sustainable model when you're taking people back out of the community after just a couple years. I think the way that real change will happen is from people who are committed to those communities, who have strong ties there and are willing to stay there over the course of their careers and mentor the other people in their community, to educate others, to build a stronger ecosystem of leadership through a long-term commitment. So that's really what we're looking for. All the fellows to date are serving the communities where they're from. So there's not really any of these cases so far where someone wants to go serve in some other community or some other country. So I think that's important. And the other thing I want to mention about the selection process is something I didn't mention is our larger theory of change and curriculum is centered around this idea of what we call human infrastructure. And just like you have physical infrastructure, which helps build the foundation, whether it's roads or dams or whatever else, to build a strong economy, the idea of human infrastructure is that a community has the skills, the mindset, the knowledge, the talent and capacity it needs to solve its own problems. And for us, that is really what we're trying to get at with this program. So all of our fellows are working in some way on something related to human infrastructure by helping strengthen the capacity of the other people in their community. Itunu is a great example of this from his work with education, but we also have fellow doing public health awareness or trying to support women or youth with disabilities to advocate for themselves and to build their own skills. And so this can be pretty general in terms of how it can apply, because you can do things in workforce development or education or peace building, but some element of your work needs to be in some way having a strategy for building up the capacity or the human infrastructure of the people in your community. So I think that's important to remember. That'll be listed in the application and website as well. But that is a really important piece that ties together all of our fellows.
Thank you so much, Reed. There's a question here asking about if someone can be working at the same time implementing their project.
Yes. So just to be clear, is the question, I just don't see exactly where is it. Is like two people are working on the same project in the same place at the same time?
No, so this person is asking if the person can have a full-time commitment then still participate in the program.
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, so we get that one a lot too. So for the project that you're working on with your fellowship, you need to be doing it full time, which means 40 hours per week at least. So we don't take fellows right now who are already doing some other full-time job. I know some people might be able to work 80-hour weeks or whatever, but in general, we're looking for people who don't have some other full-time commitment. That doesn't mean that if you're already the leader within your organization, so maybe you're leading a social venture or a nonprofit, or perhaps you're even leading a unit within a larger company, and you want to work on some sort of independent project within that, you can still apply for this fellowship. I mean, all of our fellows are working full-time as social entrepreneurs or activists or peace builders within their field. And some of them do have part-time jobs doing other things, and that's perfectly fine. We just want this to be your full-time commitment because we think, again, that you'll have the biggest impact if you're working full-time in it. One other thing just to mention related to that is we also offer what we call the executive fellowship, which is a great opportunity if you're already working for especially a mid-sized or larger employer and you want to find ways to be part of this fellowship, even if you're not doing your own independent project. And so how the executive fellowship works is that your employer would pay a $6,000 fee, and they would also cover your flights and visa. But with that fee, you'd be able to participate in the fellowship experience with the 2-week leadership institutes, the mentorship, the ongoing virtual trainings, all of that. You wouldn't get a grant or a stipend to support your work, but you would get to participate in all of the other leadership development components of the fellowship. So for example, this past year, we had 2 executive fellows from India working for an amazing social venture called S4S Technology, supporting rural women farmers. And for them, they saw that they had 2 amazing employees who they wanted to further the development of and build their soft leadership skills and management skills. So they paid to have them participate in our fellowship. So we're looking to expand that program this year after getting some positive feedback. So if you are working for a larger company, something you can do is you can talk to that company and say, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? And then that company or your supervisor could fill out our executive fellowship application and basically help apply to send you to our fellowship. That will also be competitive. It's not like everyone who can pay will be part of it, because we will still have more applications for that than we can fit this year. But I think that's another opportunity for people who are in that situation.
Thank you so much, Reed. There's a question here asking about if they would have to have the idea already running before they can apply, or could they apply with an idea?
Yeah, great question. And Itunu, I'll let you also jump in if you want to answer that, because I know there's some fellows who this applies to, but maybe just to start, we actually have several fellows. We kind of have a mix of fellows. Some fellows are continuing to work on their existing projects within the fellowship, which is perfectly fine. If they can basically argue why this fellowship will help them deepen and scale the work they're already doing, that's great. But we also have some fellows, like we have a fellow in Sudan, for example, who is starting an entirely new arts and culture, peace and reconciliation project in his home country in Sudan. And he is doing something that he hasn't done before. However, he has an incredible track record of already doing peace building and humanitarian work. So we trust that he will do a great job with that project. So for people who are proposing something completely new, you should already have some track record of success doing something similar, because that means that we'll have a good belief that whatever you end up doing, it will be effective and it has a good chance for success. I don't know, Tuna, if you wanted to add anything on that one.
Yes, thank you, Reed, for being explicit on that. So I'd just like to add that there are a bunch of flexibilities apart from the eligibility criteria that has already been set in terms of peculiarity with you and your project or what you're already doing. And that is why I said when I shared the other time that you should just allow your stories to share through, to shine through in the application process. You won't put out what you're doing, your passion. For instance, I founded Gidi to School Nigeria. However, I'm going to be working with an host in Nigeria, right? So there's a whole lot of flexibilities and allowances to allow your peculiarities in terms of the work that you're doing. But however, the most important thing is to make sure that what you're doing has the capacity to lead systemic changes, having a track record of impacts and stuff like that. I see someone in the chat asking for what is like what does a portfolio of people that are selected naturally would look like. I'll just say some of the like you read on the website of Mountaintop International,